And we will get started in about 5 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to share my passion for education and to give you some really good tips on how to get started with the whole Bitmoji world. So I'll be back in 5. Should not. I don't know how to open for more participants. Everybody, it is telling me that I am limited at the 100 participants, so I'm just trying to figure out how to let more people in, so please bear with me. If anyone knows how to open up the webinar for YouTube Live, you can send that to me in the chat. Otherwise, you can let anyone you know trying to get in that they can join YouTube Live to see this going on. And I tried to put it in the Bitmoji group. So I am going to get started in 1 minute. If anyone is trying to get in, I am putting the YouTube link in the chat so you can send that out. I am going to post one more time in the Bitmoji group, and then I will get started. All right, everybody, we are going to get started. And, you know, the one thing that I have learned helping people with technology all spring long is you really need to be able to go with the flow and take things as they come and handle some troubleshooting along the way. So thanks for your patience. I hope that you find this useful, and it's really just the beginning. So thanks for joining me. I have a lot to show you. I really don't want to rush because I know that you want to follow along as I'm going. And you don't need to worry about taking too many notes because I will be sending you all of these slides and you will see that there are lots of screenshots embedded in them. I have also been talking to you all week long on our event page, and so I have been including answers to the questions that you've already been asking me. So the presentation is a little bit longer than I planned. If we don't get to your questions at the end, I will be sending out a frequently asked question document in the post-webinar email. So send in your questions either on YouTube or on Zoom, and we will answer them, if not in the course of the webinar, afterwards. We are all learning. This may be your first time tackling creating interactive learning environments online, or in other terms, Bitmoji classrooms. And this is my first time holding a webinar that over 2,000 people said they wanted to attend. So for my first webinar, I've learned a lot. I've taken some tips and guidance from my mentors. I've learned a bit on my own, and I've leaned on my colleagues and people in this group in particular as I've navigated how to accommodate the growing interest in this topic. So like I said, we're monitoring the chat. Send in your questions, and at the very end, I will be sending a PDF of resources along with a survey to give feedback on this session. And in this safe community of learners, there is no such thing as a silly, small, or stupid question. So let me know what you're thinking as I go. So who am I? I cringe to admit this, given the content of this session and the audience and how we met. But I've never been all that involved with social media before. A dabble in Facebook, hence this group, a few posts of my own cooking on my Instagram. That's as involved as I get. So I'm technologically proficient in many ways, but not in a social media context. When school shut down, my job as an instructional coach morphed into spending a lot of time providing tech support versus that face-to-face interaction where pedagogy was the focus of my energies. And while I watched teachers moving mountains, learning, implementing, pushing themselves, I had to troubleshoot along with them. I joined the Facebook groups, including the Bitmoji craze, and I quickly found that crowdsourcing the answers to my troubleshooting was quicker, easier, and a lot of times more accurate than a typical Google search. So as the months went on, I started answering a question here and there if nobody responded yet, and I loved it. I noticed more and more people were posting cries for help, not knowing how to get started. And while there are a ton of resources online, I know from experience that a lot of people, especially those who aren't as comfortable with the technology, they really want that live interaction, even if it's through the computer right now. See someone do it in front of them, talking to them, and have the opportunity to ask questions. So on a whim, I threw up a post asking if anyone might be interested in this live session, and I was amazed at the response from all around the world. Here we are. So who are we? I know we're not all here together. I didn't expect all 2,000, now 2,500 people on that event page to log in at the same time, but we have interest represented on every country except Antarctica. Every continent except Antarctica. So thank you for welcoming me into this truly global learning community. So I'm going to quickly go through our goals, and then we're going to get right to it. I'm going to set the stage for the why. Why are we here in the first place? Then I'll get to the what, the technical competencies that you signed up to learn today. And then I'll give you examples of the how. How can you put this skill set to use to make adaptive, interactive, online learning activities and lessons for kids? Before we get into the Bitmoji classroom, I have to get on my soapbox for just a little bit, and it won't take me more than 3 to 4 minutes. Education is my passion. I truly believe that education, and literacy in particular, is the greatest precursor to equitable outcomes for students. So as we recover from and return to normalcy, whenever that may be, after this pandemic, we cannot go back to the status quo. I'm certainly not getting political. What I am noting is that I think we can all readily agree that on some level, this pandemic has amplified the existing challenges in our school systems related to student success, teacher support, and administrative oversight. So I want to be as clear as possible. As we build Bitmoji scenes, these are not the solutions to high quality teaching and learning. And I've seen a lot of people post in the Bitmoji craze group, what is this? Why are we doing it? How are we using this? So down the road, I would love an opportunity to partner with you about the how part of online learning. How are we adapting our teaching and learning to be personalized, interactive, and adaptive? What are the best tools that we can use that are the least overwhelming for teachers? The good news is you do not need to spend hours and hours making Bitmoji classrooms. The technical tips and tricks I'm going to show you today will help you make a simple Bitmoji classroom, but they are also the foundation of the tech skills you need to make actually interactive lessons, not just the pretty pictures. I want to show you one diagram before we get started. I saw this when I watched a webinar from a great organization, Achievement Network. This is the timeline of and projection of the pandemic. I think we can all relate to that big red section from March to May. This was our panic attack, survival mode, as the entire world was thrown into online teaching. We've all learned a lot about what to do better and what not to do again. We are entering the recovery phase. Plans are being put forth, ideas exchanged, debates held about what to do next and how to move forward. Notice this period isn't projected to end until January 2021. Where I live in New England, we are slated to go back to school face-to-face in September. So it's important to note we won't have all the answers by then, and we can only do our best. But what I want to talk about is that turquoise section squeezing in. And those are the conversations that I really want to be having at some point very soon. How do we not only recover and get back to school, but how can we take what we've learned, keeping in mind all of the inequities and shortcomings uncovered, and actually reinvent our profession, whether we are online or in person? We have to admit there's a lot of room for growth in our field. Our kids need more to be competitive and successful in our global society. And those are not just buzzwords to me. I have a lot more to say about this, including the difference between remediation and acceleration, and why acceleration is the path forward. But now is not the time. I'm going to be linking to some resources that I've been reading about, education and recovery, in the PDF I'm sharing at the end of this, and I'd love to find out if you're interested in continuing this conversation in a different forum. Now let's get to the Bitmojis. Very briefly, if you have not already, this is your first step. Get the Bitmoji app on your phone, log into the same account when you install the Google Chrome extension on your computer, and then those two things are linked and you're good to go. There are also some other websites and tools that help make this process run much more smoothly. I'm not going to get into them now, but more information about them and some other websites that I have relied on during distance learning are in that PDF at the end. The first step is finding all the stuff. And this is the most time-consuming part of the whole thing. I'm going to give you some advice about how to get yourself organized so that when it comes down to actually making your classroom and the lessons, it goes by quick. Most of what you need is now already on Facebook. People are willing and loving the collaborative sharing atmosphere that we are finding in these groups. When you see someone post something and they're saying, save this, take it, use it, either turn on notifications in the post or save that post for later so that you can find what you need and not get lost scrolling through all of the posts. Once you have the extension up, you need to find your Bitmojis quickly. You are going to use certain keywords that I rely on to find the Bitmojis we want the most for these classrooms, and namely, that is ones without the words around the back. A quick note about using the work people are sharing online. Just be careful, especially if you're going to Teachers Pay Teachers and people are asking you to pay for things. Make sure that the images that they're using fall under fair use or reuse with modification copyright issues. We do not want to get into any legal troubles for making our cute Bitmoji scenes. I like to make most of the stuff that I use on my own so that there's no issue, and I'm going to show you some tips for that. If you are on Google Images, you can go to this toolbar and make sure that you are selecting reuse for modification. So if you can't find everything that you need already in Facebook, and you want to make sure that you are using things that are only marked for reuse, then you want to do most of your searching right inside your Google slide deck. If you go to Insert and then Image, you are going to search the web and a little browser will pop up on the side. And I use this trick. You type in transparent before the item that you're searching for, and then the word clip art. That will make sure that you are getting things that already have a transparent background, so you don't have to worry about removing it, and that they are cartoons so that they fit with our Bitmoji cartoon theme. Once you have the images, you need to do a little bit of work with them. So I'm going to come out of presentation mode. The first thing you need to do is know how to crop the images. When you search for your Bitmoji, so this is how you actually get the pictures from the extension. You're going to go up to this top browser and click the little green circle square with the face on it, and you're going to search for what you want. And you pick up whichever image you want, and you can just drag it right to your Google slide. When you do that, there is almost always all of this clear space around the Bitmoji. And while it doesn't seem like a big deal if there are no words here that you want to get rid of, once you start layering a lot of images onto the page, you really want to be able to click on just the picture that you're trying to move, and it makes it a lot easier. So you are going to select your picture, go to this crop tool, and then making sure that you are selecting these black outline bars, not the blue ones. You are just going to drag the line to outline the Bitmoji. And then when you click off, you have your image and no extra blank space. And you can do this with regular pictures as well. The next thing you need to know how to do is move the pictures from front to back and from side to side. So if I end up with a scene looking like this, where my chair is in front of my picture, and obviously I want her sitting on the chair, I am going to select the picture, right click, use the order option, and I'm going to bring that to the front. So now my picture is in front of my chair. I want her sitting on the chair the right way. I'm going to right click on it again. And this time I'm going to go to rotate, and I am going to rotate horizontally. So that is going to turn the Bitmoji around so she's sitting on the chair. You can also turn objects around. So if she's facing the way I want her to, I can use that same flip horizontal, and I can make the chair face the way the Bitmoji was. You want to think about your classrooms, building them back to front. What is in the background and what is going to be closest to the top of the screen. And if you build them from back to front, then you won't get into too much trouble with the ordering. So if I wanted to show that this Bitmoji was sitting on the chair, sitting at a table, then I would want to add the chair first, then the Bitmoji, and then I'm going to find the table that I want her to sit at, and I'm going to add that to the screen. And now when I add the table, resize to make it look like it's the same size, they're in the right order. So doing this a little bit of purposefully will save your time. And let me show you what I'm clicking on up here. Even though there's a ton of stuff on Facebook that you can choose from, I suggest that you collect your favorites as you go. So I have been taking a simple slideshow and keeping track of what Bitmojis and objects I use at the same very frequently. So we all have our own preferences. I have a few tables, a few desks, a few chairs that I use most often, and the same thing with my Bitmojis. I find them, sometimes I'm scrolling through this app and I see a ton of things that I really like, so I just gather them all at once, because other times I'm looking for that one Bitmoji I saw last week and I cannot find her. So I save what I use as I go, and then I create my own bank of objects and pictures to use. And that is what makes building the actual lesson in classroom quick when you actually come down to it. Okay. How do you actually set up a simple room? You start with the walls and floors. How do you find them? You can Google them, making sure you're paying attention to fair use. You can choose one from Facebook, or you can make your own, which I'm going to show you by inserting a colored rectangle on the bottom of your page. You have some choices to make. Do you want just a plain blank wall and floor? Do you want to see the side walls around you? This one has one side wall. This one has two side walls. That makes it more interesting, but it also makes it more complicated on making sure that everything's on the right perspective line. And do you want to really build it yourself? Or do you want to find something that's already furnished, ready to go, and you just stick yourself in the scene and then start linking? You also want to think about how much floor space do you need? If you have deep floor space like this one, there's a lot of room to build the actual interactive room inside. You can set up virtual stations and the actual room becomes interactive. If you're just looking for a nice, engaging, inviting way to organize all of your links, then a lot more wall space will be good for you, because there's more real estate for you to keep things organized and easily identifiable. The important part is putting your background in literally the background of the slide. So you do that when you're in the Google slide, you're going to background, and then you are going to choose the image. These images, unlike the clip art, have to be saved to your desktop. So I would do the same thing, put a folder on your desktop of all the things that you save when you're looking around, so that when you go to insert an actual background, then you can. So I'm going to show you background, choose an image, and then browse your computer. I already on my desktop saved a folder, Bitmoji scenes. And when I open that up, I can pick, I'm just picking one that I have already used and created. And then when I click done, it is in the background and I'm ready to go. The second step is actually putting things in your scene. So a question we get a lot online is, how do you make sure that kids can't drag and drop and mess up the picture? Once you set up all the pieces of the picture that you don't want to be moved, then you are going to put this entire picture into the background, and that's just one more step. I used to use snipping tool for this, but I just learned through Facebook group that if you go to File, Download, and download as a PNG, that's the one that saves the most quality of your picture when you download it for the internet. I'm going to download it, and you see that in most PCs, it will pop up right on the bottom. If it doesn't, then it is in your download section on your computer. And now I'm going to do the same thing. Click download, choose image. This time, because I just downloaded this and it's right here, I can just drag and drop that right in. I don't have to navigate to find it. If not, you would click browse the same way we did before. And now it is in the background and nobody can touch anything. Now, when you watch YouTube videos about this, they will tell you now, and now you can delete the draft. Don't delete your drafts. Figure out a system that works for you to have a draft classroom slideshow and then an actual slideshow that you are going to share with your students. Because if you throw away, if you delete this movable picture, in 5 minutes, you're going to pick something that doesn't fit on the shelf. You're going to want to change the shelf and you're going to have to start over because you deleted the original. So whatever system works for you, figure it out, keep your originals, and then next time you want to make a scene, you don't have to start from scratch. Just move some things in and out and you're good to go. So I am not like a lot of the people online who are doing an amazing job and are so creative and having so much fun that they are spending hours and hours making these scenes and sharing them with the world. I applaud them. They should continue so that we can all see these creative ideas. I want to make a simple Bitmoji classroom so I can get on with the lesson planning. Let's go. I'm going to set my timer. Start from scratch. All you need is one shape. You're going to insert a rectangle on the screen, decide where you want your floor and wall to meet. And then you are going to choose what color floor you want. And then while it's still highlighted, you're going to go to this border color and you're going to click transparent. Now you'll see in my slides that I stick with the same colors often because my classroom doesn't change all year long. So why would my Bitmoji classroom change? Now I am going to go to my file of favorite clip arts and I'm going to start picking. I really think that a rug on the floor is something that brings the classroom from that 2D to 3D look. So I recommend that. And then I'm going to pick a teacher's desk. Make it a little bigger. I am going to, I should have done this first. I'm going to add my favorite chair behind my teacher's desk. So that's that order issue, right? I'm just going to now click on my desk and order and bring that to front. So now my chair is behind my desk. I am going to add some students' desks. So as you're thinking about building these, you really want to know what the purpose is going to be before you start building, because then that will make the process a lot quicker. So I already know that in my room, I want to link to my math and my reading assignments, and I'm going to put something on these two desks so that I can do that. So that's why I know I want them there. Now I am going to link to some links in a bookshelf. I'm going to go to that same bookshelf because I know what I like, and I'm going to stick it on the wall there. And then I'm going to add a whiteboard because all of our classrooms have whiteboards. And then for a personal touch, I will add some shelves. I think just 2 of them for this classroom. And because I still have 2 minutes left, I'm going to add just a couple of personal items to make my classroom. Oops, move my. I'm going to put my globe on my desk and a flower, a plant. That's my classroom. I am going to now go to File, Download PNG, so that I can save it as all one image. And then I am going to insert a new slide, new blank slide. Get used to using this little drop down when you add a slide so that you don't have to delete text boxes, because you can just add a blank slide to start with. And then I am going to insert that into the background and drag and drop and click done. And there you have it. I'm ready to actually build my classroom, and I still have a minute left on the clock. The next step is actually linking out of your classroom and into your classroom. So I want you to think for just 10 seconds, what is the purpose do you think you're going to use this classroom for? Is it going to be a gathering place for all of your links, or is it going to be your actual lesson? And while you think about that, I'm going to check the chat for any questions before we move on. Seems like a popular question is, can you have access to my favorite clip art pieces? Absolutely. I do recommend that you look at what else is out there, just because, you know, we all have personal preferences. So I am not spending time curating tons and tons of images. I'm only saving the ones that I actually like and use. So I suggest that even when you get resources like that from other people, make your own my favorites, because then you know what chairs, what desks, everything that you have right away, and you can build your own classrooms. Okay. This is where everything gets a little bit dicey, because we're all using different learning platforms. So I'm going to be sharing with you the general options for linking to and from your Bitmoji scenes. And then it's going to be up to you or us as a group in future sessions to decide how the best way to link things are in your own management system. What can you link to? You can link to anything that has a URL at the top of it. If you can get to it as a link, you can stick it in your classroom. That includes individual Google Classroom assignments. That includes other slideshow presentations and documents, PDFs. You can link to other slides in one presentation, although that gets into the advanced skill set. So you can link whatever you want. The first way is linking the text directly. So you are going to highlight whatever text it is that you want to link to, right click and choose this link feature. Go to whatever website or document you want to link to, highlight the URL, copy it, paste it right into that link option, and click apply. That will make this link clickable. And when you click on it, you will get that little drop down in Google products. I also really like linking to shapes. Shapes are our friends in building classrooms because you can use arrows. I really like these arrows. You go to shape, arrow, and then these boxes. You have room to type and arrows to pick from. You can also link to images and your Bitmojis. When you're trying to link to images, sometimes the link option doesn't show up when you right click, but you pretty much always can find it in the insert link option. So that's insert link, and then the same thing comes up. And then you see this option down here, slides in this presentation, and you can pick whatever slide you want it to go to, and then click apply. Make sure you click apply, especially if you are used to working in Google products. We're used to things just saving automatically. So you have to click apply for the link to actually work. A quick note. If you are sharing things in edit mode only, so we're going to get to this, but I want to tell you now while we're talking about linking. So this only applies to edit mode. This came up as an issue. I've been working with a group of student teachers doing a virtual summer school this summer, and they made a really cute classroom. They put all their links on it. It was engaging, it was fun. And then as I started clicking on things that said click here, none of it worked. And I couldn't figure out why. So I clicked this box to link to somewhere. If you click on the middle of the box where this text is, it thinks you want to type because you're in edit mode. It doesn't, these weren't designed to be, Bitmoji classrooms. To get to the link, you have to know to click on the border of this box, and then the link pops up. So that's fine. You don't want to spend your time during the week troubleshooting kids not being able to find your links. So if you're using text boxes or shapes and you're sticking things like click here, which is great, do that. You want to do one of two things. You want to either link to the words inside the text box, not the box itself. So see, when I put a link in this one, pops right up because it's linked to those words, like I just showed you how. And then sometimes you can't get around that. So one more step option is inserting a transparent box around what it is you want them to click on. And this is going to have a lot of uses. I'm going to show you one later. So it's worth learning how to do. So you're going to insert shape and choose whatever shape works for what's happening now. And you are going to drag and drop over the whole area you want to click. It defaults like this. You're going to go up to the fill color, choose transparent, the line color, and choose transparent. And now you can link to that object. And when you click on the link on the area, the link pops up. Another question that I've seen a lot online is, how can I draw attention to what is clickable in my classroom? So I like the transparent box idea for this, because then instead of making the border transparent, you can make the border pretty thick. So if you go to, so right here, these are your friends right here, fill, border, and then border thickness. Pick a border thickness, and then you are going to change the border color to whatever it is that you want. I'm going to make that even thicker. So if you do something like this, you can tell your kids, whenever you see a yellow border or a yellow box or a yellow anything, you know that you can click on that. And that's a technique that we used in the spring when we were making just regular interactive presentations. You know, read this information, answer this question. We would stick in yellow text boxes, and the kids would know that they needed to type in the yellow text box. Whatever option you choose to start linking things, just be consistent, right? I spent a lot of time on the phone with parents and students in the spring, trying to help them just navigate the actual classroom. And that was before we even did the Bitmoji stuff. So pick a method. There's not really one right or wrong way, as long as it is easy for the kids to follow, and be consistent. Better yet, collaborate with the people you work with, come up with a system, and all of the teachers that students need to share should have generally the same methods of getting the kids through the tech to the actual learning. Do your best. Those are all the ways to link to outside websites. Now you are going to talk about linking your actual Bitmoji classroom to your learning management systems. So again, this goes back to the purpose. Do the kids need to edit the slides, or do they only need to click the links? So if the kids need to edit the slides, that makes it a little bit more tricky, because you need to make sure that they can manipulate the actual slide themselves. So in Google Classroom, and I'm sure other management systems, that means you are going to be making a copy for each student. If you are using a platform that does not allow you to do that functionality, you just can send the kids links, then you are going to use this this hack, meaning you're going to go to whatever document that you are trying to send them, and you are going to highlight everything up until that last backslash on the URL bar where it says edit, and you are going to change all of that to the word copy. This is how people are sharing things they make through Facebook groups, and this is how you can force a copy for your students. Now, whenever you use that link with copy at the end of it, they will get this page, and they will have to make their own copy, and then you can figure out how you get that work back from them if you cannot just give them a copy. And the document's not lost. You can replace the word copy back with the word edit, and you're back to the editing version of the document. Another option people have been talking about a lot online is this publish to the web, and I really, really love it, especially as you get more and more advanced. But if you only have one page, it is super easy and you can't mess it up. So you want to do this when you only have one page of your Google Classroom if you want to keep it simple. And you are going to go to File, Publish to the Web, and then this box comes up. And if you haven't already published it, it'll look like this. If you have more than one page, it gets more complicated, but if you only have one slide for your Google Classroom, you don't need to worry about anything else. You are going to just click Publish, click OK, and then you get this link. Now this link works like any other website link. You've essentially made a mini website out of your Google slide. A little bit more complicated. This is where the embed, so you have link and you have embed, and the embed gives you the HTML, which I try to avoid as much as possible. But I do know that people are talking about when you use like Canvas and you're trying to make your homepage your Google Classroom, this is how you do it. You embed this HTML, and that's definitely advanced, and there's tips and tricks involved in that, but not for today. All right, I'm gonna check the questions. Okay. We have about 10 minutes left in this session, and I am going to try to stay on time. The very end is going to be lots of examples, but we will be putting the resources in the chat right around. Actually, Liz, you can put the resources in the chat and the survey in the chat now, and then we'll just get going for as much as we can. A few extra options for posting your Bitmoji scenes is downloading them as a PDF, and then some advanced options, linking them together to make a team or a school session, or embedding them into a Google site, which we will all, that's very advanced. Now we're going to get into the how. This is why we're doing this in the first place. How do we actually implement it? And I need to talk to you a little bit before you go about the actual teaching part of it again. So spring was our panic mode, like we talked about. I watched a webinar from John Hattie, Fisher, and Fry, and if you don't know those names in education, that is your homework right now. Go find them. John Hattie is my go-to for education best practices. He has been conducting a meta-analysis for the last 15 years. He's studied 80 million kids, over 80,000 studies. So his whole work is hinged on what works and what works well in our classrooms. And I preface that because if you're not familiar with that concept, we're not talking about what is bad and what is good. Everything that we do pretty much in the classroom has some effect on our students. That's why we have teachers. But there are definitely practices that work better than others. So I'm going to show you these slides, and it might be a little surprising. This is his effect size meter. If you know his research, when you look at the 0.14 for distance learning, at first, this looks like it's not that great. But when you look closer, you can see how close this line is to the beginning of teacher effects. And what that means is there's essentially not much difference when students are learning online as they are in their classrooms. Wait a minute, what? That can't make sense. When you dig into the research like Hattie does, you'll see that there are pros and cons for each method of teaching. So the good news is it's not the vehicle in which the students use for their learning. It's the methods that we use to get the learning across to them. It's the actual teaching, the instruction, our craft, our passion. A high effect size is teacher credibility. Teacher credibility in this context is not the fact that we're highly qualified from our certifications from our states. This means that students believe in you. They trust you. They perceive you as competent. You give them immediate feedback that's useful, and you are dynamic. You are passionate. You show your enthusiasm for your craft and for your students. I mention this because this can be difficult to convey online versus in person. When you are online, I feel it myself. Once I hit record, I feel myself getting more tense. I've had to practice to not sound like a robot every time I'm talking to my computer.